All right, we welcome you into the Crowded Booth here on a Wednesday night. And if you're a college football fan, you're tuned in, which you probably are. You know that today is a big day. No, it's not a national holiday, but it feels like we're going to have to get closer and closer to that. It is the opening of the spring portal. But of course, you've seen the graphics file in. You've seen, obviously, the graphics being filing for, I guess, now about a month or so. It feels like at this point, and guys trickle in. But today, the big transfer portal opens, and some interesting names, and including the Nico saga, we think, coming to an end. We've got a special guest coming on the show tonight. The fellas will be on after that on this episode of the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon.
We welcome you in. My name is Bryce Coon alongside Dave Shumate. Dave, how you doing, my friend?
Doing well, Bryce. Appreciate you having me on, man. I've been keeping up with your stuff for a while. I mean, you've interacted on social media, but first time officially meeting you, dude. Good to meet you. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, look, man, I mean, obviously paying attention to your content, what you guys are doing over there at SEC Unfiltered. We've had Chris on. I've been on SEC Unfiltered a couple of times. And then obviously with today, I was like, hey, I know a pretty good guest we could get on the show to kind of talk about what it's like to be on, I guess, the other side, not the media side, not the agent side, but I guess on the other side of things. But Dave, let's kind of start off here. I wanted to, I guess, paint the picture of and get your thoughts. On Monday night, we talked about this Nico saga. Whose fault really is this? And I think all three of us on the show kind of placed blame in different areas and tried to balance it out. But I know you guys have talked about this, but I wanted to kind of get your thoughts, as it seems to be that obviously Nico is going to be the starting quarterback, we think, at UCLA. What is your immediate reaction to how this whole thing went down, and in the span of what now, 5-6 days, it's come to, I guess, a conclusion?
Yeah, it really was. Since Thursday night, kind of the negotiation deal came out, and the Landers, his agent, and his dad go out there calling out Pete Nico. So yeah, you're right, 4 or 5 days. I mean, I've tweeted about it a lot, and I talk. Again, I got my last year in college football was in 2021, the fall of 2021. So I stopped in like March of 22. So it started in July of 21, but it wasn't like, I'm not going to pretend like I was in it like this. Like it's totally amped up, as most fans can probably attest. But I still have a lot of my good buddies are in it, and a lot of them are in higher up chairs in the SEC. So I talk to them pretty regularly, get to kind of still get kind of the lay of the land. And man, I've tweeted about it for like this. And you ask who is to blame? It is his father and the agent. And the agent used to be like a guy, a recruiting guy. I mean, not like me, but more on the recruiting side. He used to work at Florida, got out, was a West Coast guy, got in with the Iamaleavas. And it's, leading them astray, just continuing to make poor decisions. And as we know, this is a Polynesian background. So again, Nico, the negotiation stuff, I don't really blame the kid. It's very family oriented. The dad makes a lot of the decisions. I know a decent amount of knowledge about his brother's recruitment, who just signed at Arkansas. So this family, this agent, hard to deal with. I've heard that from numerous people. Always the deal's set, then they'll call a couple of days later wanting something else. Like it's just never enough. So like when Josh Pate reported it's been going on since December, I never had that confirmed to me, but that would not shock me at all. And I definitely lean towards that. So I definitely believe he's telling the truth when he's saying that. And my thing is like, not only just from the negotiation of the money deal, it's like the timing of it, you totally screwed Nico. Like if you were going to do this, go drop your what's and go do it in winter. Also, the winter portal period, you had other schools you could have went to too. You already X'd off an entire league in the SEC already doing it. And most people already locked into NIL deals, pay-for-play deals with their quarterbacks already. Nobody's leaving. Everybody's locked in. It's like the worst time you could have done it. The part I blame Nico is totally bailing on practice. That's where like you're a 19, 20-year-old man. You know right and wrong from that standpoint. You can tell your dad, you can tell the agent, hey, y'all, we can do the negotiation stuff. I'm showing up to the stuff I'm required to as a college athlete. I know NFL opt-out, told out, but it's totally different. That's where I would blame Nico, but the overall is the back and forth to the agent. I said this on another show. mean, Tennessee, Josh Heupel will have to be liable to some extent. You signed this kid. It was kind of, I mean, the irony of it, he was kind of the face of NIL with the whole them going to war with the NCAA about him not being able to go over it to Tennessee for NIL deals. I mean, in Tennessee they talked to this kid. They talked to Big Nick, Nico's dad, for a while. They've known this family was coming with some baggage like this regularly. I mean, you hear the reports now. He refused to go to signing to autograph sessions. He would call his dad. His dad would get mad. No, he didn't have to go to all this. Like, you knew what you were signing up for. You knew who you were getting in bed with. So some of that, nobody talks about that enough. But again, I think these coaches, with the revenue sharing come down the line, and instead of just evaluation being important, Bryce, valuation, what you're putting the price on these kids, you need to hit on that big time now. And now teams are going to, and coaches are going to be, and GMs are going to be held accountable for these misses, because you're going to have people really, these athletic departments must start operating like real businesses now. They're not going to be operating in the red. It's going to be, we're spending money. Why has this guy not played in 2 years? Like, someone's answering for this. We've wasted $800,000. So I think that's going to be shored up more a little bit. I think, and when I worked in college football, we usually didn't miss on the talent of players. Like when we were at Alabama, Texas A&M, like if you're on our board, you're probably athletically good enough. You're a good enough football player to play. Where you miss is the competitiveness, the selfishness. Is this guy a team player? And that's all over the sport. But I think that's going to have to be shored up for the long term of college football now. We're investing all this revenue sharing.
Man, I was talking with a, I guess we could call it a DFO or a GM, however you want to do it, at a kind of a mid-major, smaller school. And he was telling me, he was like, look, our athletic department is going to have to decide at some point, are we going to cut the assistant director of ticket sales, or are we going to pay this quarterback? And I don't think that's something we're really talking about at the smaller level at your G5s, and even to an extent the FCS.
That's already happened in Arkansas and Georgia.
Yeah. You're having
positions.
Lower level positions are gone, and then they're being eliminated so that you can afford to, whoever you want to say, you can afford that, defensive end, that edge rusher that you need to go get you to a championship. You mentioned your last year there in football and kind of your path to what you're kind of doing now. I mean, when you still talk to some of these guys, and I think this is the question, we had Shane Beamer on the show last year and we talked about this, the schedule, like today, the spring portal's coming out. Is this necessary? If you were the commissioner of college football, how would you change this? Do you like the spring portal? What type of stress are these guys that are kind of, weighing the options of how much we're going to feature guys in spring games and worrying about roster construction? What is it like to be kind of behind that desk right now?
Yeah, I would cut the spring portal, and I think most people would agree with that. And again, I don't like where the winter portal is stationed. And again, but I don't think there's much you can do about that. And from talking to people, I've even brought up, couldn't we just have one right after the season? And everybody gives the same answer, and they're right. They're right. Dude, at the end of the day, we have semesters. We're still, I think everyone knows they're still student athletes, but now I think we kind of treat them as employees and stuff now. It's kind of in our head because they're getting paid. But it's no, they have to be enrolled in the spring semester. And as you know, Bryce, most colleges start beginning of January, by middle of January, most schools start the first day. And you can extend that out a little bit more for an athlete. They'll usually give you the benefit of the doubt, but not 2 or 3 weeks. So I think it's going to have to be where it is. And it's unfortunate because we're going to only keep adding 14, 16 more teams to this playoff. So you're going to have 14 to 16 teams similar to the basketball coaches do now in the NCAA tournament. You're playing for a championship, but assembling next year's roster at the same time. And I don't get why basketball does it, because they have no semester to compete with. Just push it till the end of the season, 2 more weeks. What's the difference? Football, I get it. The fall rolls into the playoffs roll into the next semester. So it's dang, dude, you do have to have that done. But I think most coaches would agree they don't want one in the spring, Bryce, because I think it's dude, I would like to go into the spring knowing my roster's set. I think we can all agree that. Now, maybe 1 year I'll upgrade it, but the next year that may not work out. So it is what it is. But no, I think most people want one just so they can have their ducks in a row at this point where you're not doing this renegotiation with these wannabe agents and these families and stuff like this all the time and multiple times a year. So I think you would cut it. I hate to say it, but you're going to have to do it in the middle of the playoffs. It's the only time until we start calling these guys officially employees in the school. Doesn't matter at that point, but I think we're still a long way down the road from that.
Yeah, I was talking with someone today about the fact, and what you just brought that up right there. A lot of people say, well, they still have to get, you want to get your guy enrolled so he can get into winter workouts, he can learn, get into the film room, and then he can participate in spring practice. I mean, and this is not a disrespect. There's guys that care about school. I'm not trying to, get on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
and bang that drum, but you know as well as I do, that's not at the forefront of the conversation in our sport right now. Making
Yeah.
sure we get a kid through school. It's just not. It's not it's not prevalent. So
No, you're right.
you mentioned this, kind of where I wanted to go with the next question. People have given very colorful answers to this, and you kind of hinted at this with the representation of Nico. Wannabe agents. What I mean, I know there's got to be some horror stories from these GMs and these front office, people in college football, but just does there need to be something like where the NFL, where there has to be some guidelines being met to where you're qualified to do that job? Or is this just a scenario of where, look, you've been around it, I've been around it. I mean, there's some shady handlers that can take care of some things, and there's some weird vibes when you go to a lot of these 7-on-7s and these high school all-star games that I've been to. Is that part of the guidelines we need? Is some regulation on who can represent who and what type of qualifications you need to have?
No, Bryce, I 100%. You didn't officially say it, but I kind of feel like you're leaning towards it too. I mean, it's what Nick Saban's been saying for a long time. Like, we got to have some kind of qualifications. And Neil Stratton does a good job inside the league. Me and him have talked. He set up a GM kind of like, hey, like, we need to get all these GMs in college football together. And I think he went and did it. I think he did it in Indianapolis at the Combine.
Okay.
And he got these GMs and like the NFL agents to come in there and be like, here's the real agents, and both kind of have a panel and voice frustrations. Because the college guys, I mean, I talked to a GM in the SEC who reps a big time, a GM in the SEC who has probably a top 3 wide receiver in the league going into the season. He says, I deal from his agent, who is Kirk Cousins' agent in the NFL. So he's like, I deal with a high-end NFL agent. He's like, I was actually on the phone with him when they drafted Michael Penix last year, and Kirk Cousins was calling him, and he had to let me go. So he was like, so he does, apparently a lot of those guys will represent the big-time NFL agents, will represent these big-time college guys for free. They won't take the percentage in college, hoping when they move on to the next level now, you'll sign with me and I can be your rep because I negotiated your stuff in college. But he's like, I'll deal with him, Kirk Cousins' agent, all the way down to a 7-on-7 coach. Like, he's like, those are the people I am negotiating contracts with. He's like, most of these guys are not qualified agents. And I think inevitably when we get this ruling passed, with these contracts having to be approved and be done by official agents, I think that'll help out. I mean, even still, some of the official agents are, I mean, again, there's no rules, so it's just a complete clown show. I mean, it'll be, Bryce, there'll be certain times, like I talked to an SEC school GM, and he was like, yeah, like we were on the phone with, these were legit agents at this point, like lower tier. They probably represent like some role backup type of guys in college football.
Special team guys. Yeah.
But there's a lot, they represent a lot of guys because a lot of college football is that. But so they'll show up. He's like, we had a deal made with a kid and everybody agreed on it. The kid, the agents, us. He's like, they call back 2 days later, like, we got to bump it up 200 more grand. They're like, what? We already have a deal. They're like, well, hypothetically, Ole Miss called in and was like, they said they could get there, so we're going to need to commit that. And they said they would go downstairs to the locker room, talk to the kid, and be like, hey, Johnny, what's going on, man? Your agent just called and said it's $200 more to keep. You're here. Like, what? Hey, what's the deal? And he'd be like, what are you talking about, coach? I never talked to him. So these agents get the one deal set and then go fish it around to the rest of these schools so their percentage can go. I mean, I'm hearing these dudes are taking 20% off the top. Like these guys. I mean, most NFL agents get 3 to 4%. Now, I know we're dealing with bigger money in that league, but like still 20% of what these guys are getting. And so, I mean, it's like, I mean, the more money they can get this deal, their percentage, their payout, or not the percentage that get higher, but their payout gets bigger.
Yeah, it's, and I was talking with some folks down here in the Baton Rouge area, and, just in terms of not just negotiating with guys on the open market, but also the retention part, which is something Brian Kelly and a lot of head coaches worry about. And you're starting to see some names trickle in where that retention factor, maybe they didn't meet where they wanted to go. In terms of, and we'll get you out of here on this one, in terms of where we go from here. I mean, we're going to see the spring cycle, I think, and I don't know how much you've looked at it, Dave, but I mean, they're talking about some serious numbers of guys that have entered both. It's D2, D3 looking to try to make the jump. And then obviously, D1 guys, as well as I do, there's not enough room for all these guys. So, I mean, what type of education do these guys need in terms of advice to be able to make the best informed decisions? And a guy that was in your role and the other guys you talk to, I mean, it's got to hurt because you build relation with these kids and you see them making decisions that it's not the best for you. And you want the kid to make money. I'm not trying to sit here and say we don't like NIL. I like the premise of it. I want kids to get a cut. But just in terms of, the education that we can give some of these guys in terms of making the right decision for themselves.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, what, 3,600 players and counting have entered the portal. So it's like, dude, there's not enough spots on these college rosters for it to make sense. And I think the people who know that, such as yourself, the math just doesn't add up, folks.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, I don't hate to say this. Let's call a spade a spade. Like, let's pull the curtain back. I mean, it's already 3/4 down. Everyone is tampering.
Yes.
Everyone is tampering out there. Like, kids, if you haven't been tampered with, I probably wouldn't go get in the portal because most people are reaching out, putting the fishing line out to the specific fish they want, hoping he bites or inevitably bites, they can get the deal right. Like, so if you're not being tampered with, I would not go enter the portal. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible to not get picked up if you haven't talked to that program or some programs before you enter the portal. But 9 times out of 10, maybe 8 times out of 10, if you already know where you're going before you get in the portal, especially these big time guys and like depth guys for these Power 4 programs, like, get your ducks in a row. Come on, like, let's call a spade there. Like, nobody's going to run anyway. Man, Johnny Smith got in. Wasn't expecting that. Like, come on, there's a lot of conversations going behind. Most guys know when people are about to enter the portal.
And look, I'll tell you this, and we were talking before the show started, Blake Ruffino, and I've talked a lot about this. LSU walked into a situation, and we can say it, I guess, because I don't know if statute limitations exist with this kind of stuff, but nothing exists, Dave. Sometimes you try to coerce a kid to get in, and they never get in, and they bring it back. And so to me, it's just one of those situations where, like you said, no guidelines. It's a clown show. We have to figure out what it is. But at the end of the day, I'd like to say kids benefit from it, but I don't know if they do, Dave. I really don't know if it benefits from us. But man, we appreciate you coming on, talking a little bit about educating some of our followers and viewers and listeners, just on kind of what it's like to be on the other side of the coin there, man. But before we get you out of here, I know you do great work with SEC Unfiltered. Kind of tell them where they can find y'all's content and everything y'all got going on.
Yeah, you'll follow me at Dave Shumate SEC. You also follow at SEC Unfiltered, and then go like, subscribe. Let us know where we can be better. I feel like we do have the best SEC content from football, men's basketball, and baseball around. But Bryce, again, dude, I appreciate you having me on, dude. Finally kind of getting to meet you after interacting with you, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show. But excited to come on. If you'll have me on again, I'm down to come on anytime, and we'll have to get you on the show as well.
Awesome, Dave. We appreciate it, man. We will catch you next time, and like I said, we'll definitely have to link up again and make this happen.
For sure, man.
That is Dave Shumate. We appreciate him tuning in. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Ralph and Will are going to join the show. We're going to talk about this college football schedule, the portal in general, and I'll get some of the guys' thoughts on Nico ending up at UCLA. We'll see you here in just a second.
Your soap is ugh, and your body wash is a synthetic detergent. But you're not a dish. You're a man. Switch to Dr. Squatch Natural Soap for Men. For men who build things. Open pickle jars on the first try. Slay dragons. And let their daughters braid their hair. Men who like to feel good and smell. Titillating. Dr. Squatch takes you places you never thought you'd go. Naked.
All right, we're back here on the Crowded Booth. My name is Bryce Kuhn. We got Ralph Leary, Will Mannis hopping into the show here as well. And fellas, we have, and pumped to have Dave Shumate there on the show and kind of give a little bit of background. And Will, I don't know if you know this, but Dave worked closely with your boy Gus down in Orlando. That was his last job, I believe. He was at UCF there in Orlando. So kind of a behind the scenes in terms of what he's seeing, what he's hearing from some of his good contacts in the sport. But fellas, the spring portal opens up. It's complete chaos. I wanted to start here because I thought Dave left off on a good point. We had some conversation in the Discord about this today, but Will, I'll start with you. If you don't think tampering exists for your school because you think your school's too buttoned up to do it, well, one, they're probably a loser of a program, and two,
you can't
that's
say that.
Not real. That's not real. That's not real. So just kind of talk about what you think about just in terms of tampering and how it's almost, I mean, I know your team did a little something, maybe a little reaching into the pot this past off season. Just in general, like if you're not tampering, you're not trying.
Hey, That's kind of been the motto in college football for 60, 70 years. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. Yeah, I mean, if you don't think tampering is going on, you just don't want to believe that it's going on. It's obvious you have to do it. I mean, everybody else is doing it. You can't get by anymore without keeping up with the Joneses. It's impossible.
Yeah, I think it is what it is. And in terms of tampering, what the loopholes are there, right? Okay, let's talk about loopholes. It's, hey, we were looking at our big board, and like I said, if you don't think this happens, you have analysts and you have GAs, maybe even guys that just cut up film that kind of sit there and have a board of guys that if they enter, we want them, and maybe so-and-so talks so-and-so, who then bends the ear of the player at said school and says, hey, if you enter, this is your options. And it's kind of what I did a show last week on what Kirby Smart said. Like, you have some agents who are essentially running through presentations of players they represent, and what would it be with that? So I don't know. It's interesting to talk about the tampering season. Ralph, I wanted to kind of parlay that into, you're seeing a lot of, no contact, do not contact signs, which is, to me, it's like they're putting it out in front of you, right? Like, they're literally saying, hey, I kind of know, like, there's no other way you should know where you're going, right? If you're doing it the right way.
I'll tell you one thing. If you don't believe there's tampering, just look at how fast these guys commit to other schools. I mean, that is the pure sign. Jaden Knott enters the portal. They later
committed. Oklahoma.
Yeah, Oklahoma. Really? You're telling me he didn't even go visit? Didn't even take a phone call from them? No, he had that offer about a week ago. I mean, this is what this has been going on for decades. But now we have this portal, and the way it's set up now, it's legal to really kind of interact with these players once they enter the portal, technically. But they're still going on behind closed doors. And we say closed doors, these guys are just in their apartment probably, or their dorm room, and they're sitting there and they're getting a text from like a random coach from another school saying, hey, man, we really could use your help this year. I know you're not getting much playing time there, or you're not happy there. You want to hit that portal. You can come here. That happens all the time, and it's going to keep happening. And I know we're talking about later, but that Nico situation, there obviously were talks behind closed doors with him. There had to be, because
I mean, and we can just take it there right now. I mean, Ralph, he enters the do not contact tag, but I don't think they knew where he was going.
Well, I mean, I was joking with y'all. I sent a text, a certain player entered the portal, and I said he'll just be throwing Nico will be throwing passes to him in Scuba, Mississippi, because no one knew anything, because there was rumors that he was going to North Carolina. Well, they backed out. Tulane backed out. Tennessee already pushed on, so it was like UCLA is the only school that's available, and they apparently they didn't even match Tennessee's offer.
Yeah, no, it's well below.
He had frustrations at Tennessee, and that is very, very adamant. There's tweets going on. He wasn't happy with the offense there, but there's so many things to take from this guy with this situation. What goes forward? Oh, am I frozen? No,
you're good.
I thought you were frozen for a second. I thought it was me. But there's so many things to take from this whole situation. Is that if they're going to hit this no contact tag, they're going to put that in there, and they're committing the next day or that afternoon, that night, that means there's tampering. That's 100%. That goes to show you that they have committed to, unless they want to go out and reach out on their own. They're that desperate to go find a coach. That makes sense in a certain way, or they have a select amount of schools they want to hear from. I get that, but I don't know. I don't like no contact thing if you're a college athlete.
Well, okay, going back to what you said about the Nico situation going to UCLA. Let's just talk about that a second. Let's just talk about kind of the reaction, because that's obviously one of the biggest dominoes to kind of fall here. The 180 that the Nico camp has tried to do now is wild in terms of apparently it's the offense, which UCLA has lost 3 of their top 4 pass catchers from last season. They do not have a good they have one of the weaker offensive lines in the Big Ten, one of the weaker overall teams in the Big Ten, And I'll just say, because I watched them up close, they've got a head coach who I will tell you the people who cover that team think is incompetent at being a head coach at the college football level. This is not a situation where you went to somewhere in terms of better development aspect of it. And also, too, I saw someone tweet, Josh Heupel got Joe Milton drafted.
Mhm.
Like, if this would have worked and you were as good as you said you were, you would have been fine in that sense. So, will Nico to UCLA, this feels, I mean, obviously, I guess going back to the West Coast, it is what it is. But, man, I think it's just crazy in terms of where we sat here late Thursday night last week to now, and you got a guy that's playing for a team that, I mean, I don't know if UCLA is a top 45, top 50 team in the country. I don't think they are. Probably maybe loosely top 75, and that might even be kind of, getting a little too nitpicky with it. But just your kind of thoughts on it.
It's a huge step down. I don't think there's any argument in that. It's just weird. I mean, you talk about the changing of the tune from the camp, trying to blame Heupel's offense. That they're just trying to do damage control at this point. I mean, nobody's going to take that seriously, and unfortunately for Nico, nobody's going to take him seriously anymore. After all this has gone down, UCLA really doesn't make any sense, really, for all the reasons that you said. I mean, I guess it gets them closer back to home, but from a football standpoint, it makes zero sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of development. Like you said, it's a lot of damage control there as well. Ralph, anything to add on that?
No, I mean, I'm just scrolling through the portal right now, just updating every once in a while to see, if there's any other big names going in. But there's another one I saw today on Twitter. That Ball State tight end that committed to Wisconsin over winter in that portal is now in the portal again.
So double guys.
So he has never played a snap for Wisconsin, but he's in the portal again. Tanner Koziel. I think
it's the same example. The tight end from Wake Forest that transferred down to Georgia Tech, spent spring ball, went back to Wake Forest.
So he was a. Oh wow, this is he came from Louisville in 2023. He entered the portal in. This I'm reading his timeline, Bryce, and it's February 20, 2024. He withdrew his name from the portal. December 6th of 2024, entered the portal. 8 days later, commits to Wisconsin, and now on April 16th, 2025, he is now in the portal again. So
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and it does kind of beg. Go ahead.
He's also a no contact tag, by the way.
Whatever that means. Let's talk about this because we did talk with Dave about this, and we kind of got just as
Gavin Hart has the inside source.
Yeah.
Is that what Dylan Gentry's doing?
Scuba, Mississippi.
He might. He's at he's going to be at Point.
Scuba.
So it's Clayton, that's an upgrade for Wake, getting a player from a team with 2 top 10 wins last season. I don't know. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this spring schedule because Dave obviously mentioned that you'd like to get rid of the spring cycle. You guys have seen the amount of numbers that have been put into this, and I wanted to kind of preface this topic with this. Dave brought it up, and I talked about it as well. I think one of the biggest problems is, and we talked a little bit about this on Monday, is that we are still viewing this as amateur sports or the powers that be that they want to do that while all this money is involved. And once again, this is another case for me of wanting to just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and let's just professionalize it into minor league sports. What does that mean? It means that the education aspect is not going to be taken as seriously as people want it to be or they want it to appear to be. What do you mean by that? Well, you mean whenever we talk to coaches or people like that, what's the one thing they say? Hey, we want to get this kid in before he has to enroll for this winter semester, spring semester, so he can get into workouts, he can get into kind of the film room, understand the playbook before we get to spring ball. It's a massive talking point. Early enrollees for high school, the same deal. The issue is if you're going to put the transfer portal, if you just did one of these and you want to do it at the conclusion of the season, so let's say national title game was on January 20th, the portal opens up on the 21st, it runs for about 3 weeks, whatever you want to do with that. If you're going to do that, well, you're going to have kids that can't enroll at a certain school until the summer. that's going to hurt. I really do think that that's going to be thrown under the rug in terms of that, because if they're going to fix the schedule, they're going to make lives easier for GMs, recruiting analysts, scouting, and DFOs. If they're going to make life easier for these people, then in turn you're going to have to mess with what it has been. And so I don't think there's a win-win situation in keeping the amateurism, keeping the student athlete, which we know, and Will said this multiple times, doesn't really exist to begin with, and also getting us to where we need to be so we can get out of this purgatory that we used on Monday. So, Will, kind of your thoughts on the schedule. What would you like it to look like? I mean, do you want to see a portal during the playoff? Would you like to see the free agency take place like it does in every single other sport at the end of the season?
I think we go a step further and wait until the summer. I mean, why not? There's really nothing. I mean, that's all recruiting time anyway. But it's like you said. I mean, if we're going to this revenue sharing model, it's really not amateur sports anyway. So what's the point of waiting? Because that kind of gets you through the school year. But it does help. It helps coaches and recruiting staffs kind of figure out their numbers. So they're not. And I think it can kind of help separate your high school recruiting from your college recruiting, your portal recruiting a little bit, because you have a better idea of what your numbers are of how many high schoolers can you take? How many college guys do you need? What exactly do you need from the portal? It may make things cleaner where you just kind of keep status quo at least until the spring is over. And I would say even into the summer, maybe like a May or June 1st, the portal opens, something like that.
I was thinking about just kind of the timeline we're at now. So everyone that typically knows, and we're actually seeing this move up on the recruiting calendar. OV season is typically your month of June, right? Like you have OV season, July is your dead period. A lot of programs will do a big recruiting event towards the end of July, late July, that final weekend into early August, and then you get into fall camp. And I'm brainstorming this as we're talking this, Will, like you could do it the same time you do high school recruiting. That's going to affect high school recruits, which I don't think anyone wants to see. Could you do a separate one in June, one in July? Or could you do the month of May when kids are because as soon as kids have graduated from wherever they're in school, which is typically early May, that's what it is. I don't know though. Going back to what you're saying, like what if you had June for high school, you had July for college, and then your roster had to be set, kind of like the NFL does. You had to have your 53, your 85 man roster, or whatever it's going to be, set by August 1st when everyone breaks for camp.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that would. I don't know. It's. We're looking for how to make it as clean as it can be, and I think you pick either May or July. Probably you keep July as a high school dead period, so to say. But I mean, even still, I mean, we're talking about quality of life of coaches and staffers and all. No summer vacations.
Yeah. Okay. Here's another one. Let's open this up to people can comment on it, and Ralph, you can get in on this too. What if you eliminated spring practice? That would get rid of the academic calendar issue, right? Because the problem is there's not enough time for playoff teams, or really even if you got a bowl game on December 27th, you don't have enough time to really do what you want to do. What if you did that and then you opened up to true OTAs in the summer? So that was your practice time. And then maybe you maybe your fall camp isn't as long as it is or something like that, and you kind of roll into hey, you have practice in the month of June, and you can utilize the spring, do whatever you want. I don't know. I think the problem is, and Ralph, throw it to you here, is that people are trying to hold on to the academic calendar system when the sport has functionally become a professional league. It was never designed to be like that. And that's why we're at this crossroads, and you have a lot of things that are in the crosshair of being eliminated.
Yeah. I think we just get rid of spring practice in general. I think you make it like an OTA kind of situation where you have you have team workouts, you have, the film study, all that. And then summer is your full practice. I mean, this is what 100% of these kids are used to. When you're in high school, you're practicing over summer. You're working out in the summer. It's hot. Yeah. But that's what you're used to. That's what you go through in high school for those 2 days, It's not fun, but that's what they grew up on. And then I know it sounds, and then you think about it like, oh, that runs right into the season starting. Well, that's what they've been doing their entire lives. But you do spring practice and you have everything just it gets jumbled up, and it causes issues with their academic academic lives, and if there is such thing really for these guys. Everyone's a communications major basically.
Yeah.
You have a handful that aren't. But there's just so many problems with how the portal schedule starts up with, right at the end of the season. And the guys entered the portal, mid-season now. We saw what UNLV's quarterback last year entered the portal after 4 games. Barry Alexander entered the portal after 5 games. This whole situation.
I remember Joey Gatewood did it at Kentucky a few years ago. Just after like 6 games, just quit.
And
everybody's like, everybody's like, what are you doing? I mean, you could have at least hung around and kept working out and practicing.
Yeah, and then
just left.
For spring, like you have guys enter the portal, or they're gonna enter the portal once the portal opens up mid-spring practice. It's not very public, but it's happening. It's said on Twitter like it's going to enter the portal.
Intends to enter the portal. Yeah, you get those.
It's week 2 of spring ball. What's going on? I mean, it's crazy to be. I don't think these guys should be allowed to say anything about the portal until the portal opens up. Now I know that just makes a giant mess when it opens up, because I think Bryce. I don't know if this is true. I think you mentioned this one time. You get an email when people enter the portal, right?
Me, no.
I thought you did. I thought you get a little notification like, oh, this person's been entered the portal.
No, I mean, I would say if you have access to first off, the portal is a actual thing. I think that a lot of people think it's just like this whole idea. It's an actual database. But yes, so to that point, we do get notifications when guys do enter the portal. Yes.
So, I mean, the notification would just go nuts all day, obviously. But
yeah.
But still, it just, this whole situation it messes everything up. Even with spring games right now. That right there is the biggest issue. And I saw this picture on Twitter, and I wanted to show y'all. This is from Alabama. I don't know if y'all saw
the spring game?
Their spring game from last year to this year. No, so I mean, I know there's a difference from last year having not Nick Saban, but that right there shows you that no one cares if you're doing spring practice anymore. They're not going to watch the spring practice. They want to watch this game.
On top of that, they're not in love with Kalen DeBoer anymore. I think you ask, your average Alabama fan, average fan of any team, just kind of that casual fan, like our parents, so to say. They don't know who's on the team.
Yeah.
They genuinely do not know who is on the team. All they know is that they can come and go. Basically, they can come and go as they please. And so nobody knows who's out there.
And if you're a North Carolina fan, you wouldn't know anyways, because they don't there's nothing to differentiate Bill Belichick from the players. So
I don't know when they did it, but I saw videos where they had they had people go out there and do get autographs from players. So they had a line for Ryan Williams, was like wrapped around the entire field, which is wild to me. But still, and people are just going for the autographs and then leave. They don't care for the practice. So I think just get rid of the spring games in general. Let it be spring practice, and then maybe an open. I've been saying for weeks, Bryce, what Ole Miss does is perfect. They're killing it.
Make it NIL incentives. Like let people interact if you're going to do that. So it's interesting. The spring schedule change and just in college football general needs to be overhauled. I think, like I said earlier, you're just kind of at the crossroads of people trying to hold on to the student athlete moniker, which has been made a joke at this point. And then you're also, it's a professional sport, and you just got to rip the Band-Aid off and get some legal ramifications, get some guidelines, and then let's proceed. I mean, we've been saying that for a long time, and I think that's just where you're at this point. I wanted to touch on this before we get out of here. So the spring portal opens. We talked about there's so many players have entered. This spring portal cycle has already surpassed last year's in terms of players entering. You're not seeing, obviously, and I mean, I think it's people are not paying attention as much. You're not seeing massive shakers enter the portal, but you're seeing guys that are going to play roles at places that have, maybe they were highly rated recruits that are entering and moving on. But I wanted to kind of touch here, like who's a guy that outside of Nico that, and I'll go first. Who's a guy that outside of Nico that you're kind of like, hey, that could be a pretty high impact spring transfer guy wherever he goes? I want to start with this one, and maybe it's not a true spring transfer because he didn't enter today, but he entered, I guess, a week and a half ago. Mine's David Bailey, the edge rusher from Stanford that committed to Texas Tech. He's going to be on the other side of Romello Height, and Bailey is a. Oh, it was described to me like this: Bailey's a guy that Texas Tech doesn't typically get out of the high school ranks. Like he's developed into a guy that maybe goes to Texas at a high school or goes to, LSU and doesn't stay kind of in the Lubbock area. They're able to go get him. Texas Tech has tons of money they're pouring into the program, along with kind of Pat Mahomes helping out with that. I like the portal class that Texas Tech has put together. I think it's cool to kind of see what they're doing. But for me, it's David Bailey. I think that's a guy that could really make a big impact and also is going to help a guy like Romello Height on the other side who, yeah, he isn't a transcendent pass rusher, but he's got a pretty decent floor. And now you can't double team him. You're going to have to play one-on-one, especially with the tackles on the outside there. So I think that's something that's kind of really interesting. So that's my guy that I'm kind of looking there as well. Before we get to this, I do want to get to this right here. Rec Talk says, Tennessee fan tells me they have the largest NL collective in the country, so are they choosing to get donkey punched by Ohio State in some 4D chess game? They don't. They have a really, really good one, but they don't have the largest war chest. But they have their collective is very, very good. Are they choosing to get donkey punched by who? What do we mean by Ohio State in a 4D chess game? I'm sorry, Rec Talk. I don't understand there. Will, who's the guy that you're maybe looking at? Who you like?
I gotta see who's in the portal. I gotta figure out who's in the portal.
Pick and choose, man. There's tons of them.
I pulled it up, and I can honestly tell you, I have not heard of.
There's one on there, Bryce. I want to say.
Wait a minute. This is 2024. Hold on.
Micah Kelly.
Ralph, you do yours first.
I'm going really home here. I'm going to go Damian Taylor from Troy. Just because he was a 1,000-yard rusher last year at Troy. Dude can flat out run the ball. He's a great running back. A great addition to our running back room that doesn't have a lot of depth in it. Needs a guy who's taking a lot of snaps in Division I football. A guy, especially who had 1,000 yards last year, that's huge. I think he could be a great addition to a Power 4 program who has a young, talented running back. And just needs that veteran leadership and a guy who can get a first down carry, and that's just truthfully what he's going to do. Had a few 200-yard games last year, so a guy he's a workhorse, plays well, runs to the tackles, and basically just ruined Troy's entire season. So,
all right, Will, what you got?
Dylan Gentry.
Are we saying guys that have already gone somewhere?
No. It's guys that it's spring portal guys.
Well, 24/7 does not differentiate.
It does.
Like Jade Knott is a spring portal guy.
Well, I would have said Jade Knott, but I mean he got bottled up by a bottom half SEC defense in 2024.
At least we're going to do the same thing this year too.
Probably. And Oklahoma has its own problems.
Gavin says Braden Joyner, all SEC freshman.
Loss.
What about
big loss?
Trebor Pena, top 125th player, 125th player in the country. Syracuse wide receiver. He's a good player. He had a good season for them last year. It's okay if you don't have one.
It's baseball season, so
it's going to be interesting. I think I'll list another one though, since Will's not going. Bo Atkinson, the edge from North Carolina, has already set up visits to Ohio State and Georgia, so that's going to be interesting there. All right, let's go ahead.
Nycar has done nothing, but 24/7 is still giving him a 4-star transfer rating.
Where'd he go?
He went from Georgia to Miami, and now he's back in the portal.
Projections. What were you saying, Ralph?
I was just going to go Ashton Cozart from SMU. He's in the portal now. Possible.
I like
He only had one catch last year, but 6'3", 200 pounds, 4-star. You know, guy's got talent, obviously, and is looking for playing time. So,
All right, let's get to Rec Talk's question to end the show. If they have the biggest collective, why don't they get the best roster? Well,
Right.
because it does not. I hope this is a real question because I know that Rec Talk knows enough about football to know what I'm saying here. It's not all about money. It's not, like, regardless of when you hear a lot of fans complain about NIL, complain about the portal, the first thing is, well, it's all about money. Well, it isn't. It isn't. Does money factor in? Yes. Does money hold weight a lot for some kids? Yes, it does. But fit and development also really, really matter. And here's what I'll say about this. There are two different types of programs in college football right now. There are money program. There's three. There's money programs to where you don't really have to have an elite recruiting staff. You just got a big wad of cash that you can go throw out somewhere. Then you have developmental programs that bargain bin shop, have good evaluators. They're able to, identify those diamonds in the rough, and they develop those guys. And then you have the elite of the elites who pair the money with the development. And that's where you find the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Alabamas, where they've been, across college football for however long, the Texas, those programs. So in that sense of why can't you get the best roster? Well, because I think for me, it's not all about the money in terms of, or for every single kid. It's just not. That's not what it's about for every single kid. Do you want to make money? Of course, like, you'd like to. But there are some kids, like, and it's not just like a few here in between. There are kids who are like, you know what? They really believe in the sense of, like, if I can go somewhere and I can make some money, but the real money is going to become when I'm the 8th pick in the draft. Like, that's what I'm working towards, the development aspect. There are kids that understand that. There's also other people who say, I want to go ahead and get mine now. And I don't fault them for that either. So I think just in general, you have three types of programs: the money programs, the development programs, and the ones that are able to put that together. And that's your elite, consistent national title contending programs right there. So it's interesting. I don't know exactly kind of where you go with this going forward. And you kind of have to break in if you're into that. I don't know. I think some programs have a glass ceiling of how far they can go under the current restraints. So we'll kind of see what happens. But it's is. And I would say this too. Clayton says, or get a great education at places like the Institute. Pete, this is what I'm talking about, though. And I know Clayton's trolling, but like, people
less
really
than 10% of Division I FBS Power 4 football players care about their education.
And I want to caveat that, regardless if they should or not. Should they? Yes. Clayton, should that be it? Because the numbers don't add up in terms of going to the NFL. But at the forefront of their minds, their parents' minds, the agent, the handlers, that is not what that's not what's a driving factor for a lot of these kids. What is that?
I think that's a fair number. Less than 10%.
I would go higher, but I'd say less than 25%.
Yeah.
To be safe. Because it's like, we just got to talk. This is not about academics anymore. It's just not. Like, you have kids that are transferring, like Ralph said, you have double transfers, right? Kids that transfer, let's just say they transfer in December, enrolled in January, transfer again. They don't care about the class. That's not at the forefront of their minds of what they're trying to accomplish and do. So it's interesting. I don't know. It's a weird space to go in. College football's weird. The spring portal day exploded with names. Honestly, the quality of names were more impressive than I thought they were going to be. I think there's some starters. There's some guys that can play different roles in that. It's not just afterthoughts. It's not just guys in bargain barrel. Like, you have some interesting stuff. So Ken Hendricks, because my best friend played at Tech from 2002 to 2005. None of that team was there for academics either. It's interesting. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. College football's in a weird spot, and we'll continue to try to keep tabs on it. But I do kind of go back to what you said earlier, Will. I think it's getting hard to follow because people don't know who's on what team. Like, if you're not tuned into it, you don't really know who's on what team.
I showed that just 2 seconds ago. I mean, I've been out of the loop today, big time. So like, I couldn't have even told you who was in the portal. Maybe Jaden Knott was probably the only guy I could have told you was in the spring portal. You have to stay on top of it if you want to have any idea what's going on.
You got to have tweet notifications on Zenitz and Nikos. That's what you have to do at this point to get all those. So
don't say his first name.
Which one?
Both.
Oh, yes. Christian Adams says 1.6% of college football players make it, and they should care. Wholeheartedly agree, Christian. I just don't think, like we talked about in the beginning of the show, and if you weren't here, go back and watch when we talked with Dave. These kids are not getting good advice. And I'm not blaming it solely on the kids. Like, I think it's a blame to go around, but 1.6% of college football players make it in the NFL. They should care. Yeah, they should, but they don't. And everyone's trying to achieve that dream, chase that bag, and get what they want to get. That's ultimately kind of where you're at with it. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting. So, all right. Well, we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate Dave for hopping on the show and talking about the landscape of college football, where it's going, what's happening, and what it's like to be on the other side of the chair. I'll tell you one thing. I don't envy director of football ops and GMs. I just don't envy that right now. That cannot be fun in terms of what they have going on there. So, good stuff. But he's Ralph. That's Will. My name's Bryce. We'll catch you next time here on the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon.